Hey guys, it's Konrad, Bobilak, author of Australian Property Finance Made Simple and CEO of Investors Prime Real Estate. And this is a video that I've created for you in order to give you a bit of an understanding and a number of tips on how to pick the best apartments in Melbourne and how to avoid buying a lemon, which is very important because I'm seeing more and more apartments being built in Melbourne and I'm seeing a lot of crap being built out there. And I want to save you the headaches and the mistakes that I've learned over the last 10, 15 years being in banking and mortgage broking and seeing people buy apartments in really good areas, but really not realizing the true potential of that apartment because of the wrong configuration or the wrong type of project. So this is a video specifically designed for Melbourne people or Melbourne apartments or investors wanting to buy in Melbourne specifically. Now also what I want to do, which is really cool, is I want to give you a special bonus at the very end of this video. Where I'm going to give you access to a 10-hour online home study on real estate investing, absolutely free, valued at $497. So watch the entire video to the very end, and then you can see how you can claim that home study absolutely free. You can get access to that immediately after watching this video. So let's talk about my 42-point due diligence criteria. Now, if you know a little bit about myself, my background is I'm the author of Australian Property Finance Made Simple. The second book that I'm writing is Australian Property Due Diligence and Research Made Simple, which is really how to identify the best suburbs in Melbourne to invest in. And there's 316 suburbs in Melbourne, only 45 suburbs are worth investing in. So I'm going to show you and teach you how to really with laser-like precision, eliminate most of the suburbs, but more importantly, how to identify the best properties in those areas. These are some of the criteria that I use, and this is macro level due diligence on how to eliminate most areas. The most important thing is income demographics of the area. If you want to get 10% growth per year, you've got to target areas who have the highest income per household. And this means you've got to target establish all the blue chip areas in Melbourne. Forget about fringe suburbs, guys, that have the lowest income per household in Melbourne. So you've got to have people living in areas with lots of money and the ability and the willingness to pay above market. So areas like Hawthorn, Canterbury, Brighton, Toorak, Hampton, Sandringham, Black Rock, these areas represent the best capital growth potential in Melbourne. The challenge with the areas is, of course, houses are so expensive, $2-3 million. The only option for investors is townhouses and apartments. And this video specifically is made on apartments. I like to see lending restrictions on apartments. You've got to be aware that apartments have a lot of lending restrictions imposed on them. So I'm going to show you what to avoid in order to make sure that when you're buying an apartment, there isn't a lending restriction imposed on the type of property that you're buying. I'm going to show you what that means exactly in a second. When I buy something, I look at the historical capital growth of the area. I want at least 10% growth per annum for the last 10 years. And more importantly, I look at the future potential capital growth of the area. There's a lot of really good suburbs in Melbourne, like South Melbourne and South Yarra, which were traditionally very good areas to invest in, but now they're becoming oversaturated with apartments, and I wouldn't buy apartments in South Yarra or South Melbourne. Docklands and South Bank, look, reality is they've always been a disaster for capital growth. If you want to lose money, in investing in apartments in Melbourne, just buy something in Docklands and South Bank and you're going to get 1 or 2% growth per year, if that. You look at the proximity of the project to the city and the water. Melbourne is priced based on the property's proximity to the city and to the water. People will pay a premium for convenience. So you look at the proximity, the infrastructure of the area. We look at the accessibility and availability of transport and freeway infrastructure of the area. I pretty much stick to the Bayside, inner south, southeast areas of Melbourne. We look at the primary schools and secondary schools in the area. Look at the top 40 schools in Melbourne. They're in the eastern suburbs, the Bayside, inner south, southeast. I look at the vacancy rates and the rental demand. Docklands, South Bank, vacancies are astronomically high. Rental yields are record low. Not a good area to invest in. I look at the volume of stock being offered and already available by other developers, and also what's coming up in the pipeline. I look at in terms of the volume of stock coming in the market in the area long term, and I'll show you how many towers they're going to be building in Melbourne in the future. I mean, it's unbelievable what's happening. And also I look at the housing strategy of the council for the area. a lot of areas that I target have councils that restrict apartment developments, which means that in the future there isn't likely to be a lot of stock coming on the market. If the council's housing strategy report is very pro-apartments, I'll probably stay away from that area. So if you look at apartments in Melbourne, you know, there's literally, you're seeing a lot of articles that talk about an oversupply of apartments in Melbourne. And that's very true, but the oversupply is clustered within a specific few suburbs that I recommend you avoid at all costs. Avoid them like a tea in an arena concert. I don't know why I said that. Melbourne, if you look at Melbourne, for example, there's 6,000 apartments already under construction in South Bank, and there's more than 16,000 apartments on the plans. If you look at Melbourne, South Bank and Docklands, I mean, have a look at the blue towers. These are the towers that are coming onto the market. And you can see that, I mean, it's a huge amount of apartments that's coming on the market. You know, and these towers, the problem with these type of properties is they're all identical. They've got hundreds and hundreds of apartments inside of them. Most of these are sold overseas because reality is that there's no local demand for these properties. I mean, Australians don't want to live in high density apartments in the city. So most of these are sold in China, Singapore, Asian countries, where people tend to live in apartments. And they think, you know, if they live in apartments in Singapore, they think everyone lives in apartments in Melbourne. Australians do not want to live in apartments, full stop, okay? They only live in apartments if they're priced out of the townhouses and the houses in the suburb, but they actually will not sacrifice the area. That's the reality. So if you're brought up in Hawthorn, your family's in Hawthorn and you're young, you want to stay in Hawthorn, yes, you're going to buy an apartment in Hawthorn because you can't buy a house because you're probably priced out of the housing market. That's the only reason someone would buy an apartment in Australia. But we don't go and seek out apartments necessarily. It's not our preferential way of living. But it is changing. This is another another photo. Have a look at the amount of towers that are getting built in the city. I mean, it's incredible. You know, the thing is, I love this. I mean, I would never invest money in this, but I think this is a sign of maturity. You know, I mean, Melbourne is the most livable city in the world 4 years running. You know, why shouldn't we have high density apartments in inner city areas? I mean, look at Manhattan, for example, in New York. I mean, it's tower after tower. So I actually like this. I think it's a sign of maturity. I think Melbourne needs this kind of high density dwellings in the city. I think that a lot of people can live in these towers at a very low price point, very low rental yields, because there's going to be so much competition. So it does provide a lot of solutions for people who work in the city who don't necessarily want a car, and they're happy to pay very low rental for those. From an investment perspective, this is not a good way to make money. In fact, you're virtually guaranteed that if you buy one of these apartments, you're not going to see a good return, and you're going to see a return below inflation for the next 10 years. In fact, the banks are aware of this, and that's why they've blacklisted postcodes and they've imposed a lending restriction on apartments in Melbourne. So in Melbourne, for example, Melbourne 3000 postcode, which is the central business district, has a blacklisting. 3004, 3005 World Trade Centre as well, South Bank, and obviously now South Yarra and Docklands and South Melbourne 3205 have a postcode restriction. So as an investor, you cannot afford to invest in an area that has a lending restriction imposed on the postcode. Why? Because the maximum you can borrow against the property is 80% LVR, as low as 70% LVR. So what happens from a practical perspective is you can never get your equity out of the property to buy more property. So imagine you've got an apartment with $500,000, right? And you have a lending restriction imposed on at 80% LVR. The maximum you can ever draw out of that apartment is $400,000. So you've got at least 50 grand locked up in the property, up to potentially 100,000 at any one time that you can't access or use, because the bank requires a buffer just in case you need to sell the property at the wrong time. And that's a very expensive thing, because that could mean that you're missing out on 2 or potentially up to 3 properties every 10 years that you could otherwise secure if you had access to all the equity in that property. Not a wise thing to do. Bottom line, guys, if the postcode is blacklisted, don't touch the area, full stop. If you look at Melbourne apartments, the best thing to do is focus on areas where there's a 3-to-1 ratio between the apartment and the average detached house. And that's where apartments will give you good growth. So if you look at, for example, Toorak in Melbourne, the median price in Toorak is $3 million. A few weeks ago, it just hit $4 million. And the average apartment is 672,815. So there's a 3-to-1, almost 4-to-1 ratio between the price of an apartment and a house. I.e., you need 3 to 4 apartments to buy one house. That's a very good ratio. The closer you get to the 3-to-1 ratio, the more growth you're going to have from your apartments. And this is where people stuff up in areas like Mitcham, for example. Mitcham's a great area. Big fan of Mitcham. Maroondah Highway is great. Eastling's great. Great schools. No problem. Apartments will never work in Mitcham. Why? Because you're paying $650 for a 2-bedder in Mitcham and you're paying $750 to $850 for a house. Why would anyone rent an apartment where you can live in a house in Mitcham? It doesn't make sense. There's a $200,000-$300,000 difference on average on a house versus an apartment. Do you see the problem? Why apartments don't work in Caroline Springs or Dandenong or Ringwood or any of these areas? It just doesn't make sense from an investment perspective. Okay? So what you need if you're buying an apartment is you need to have a 3-to-1 ratio between the cost of a 2-bedroom apartment and a detached house in the area. The more you get closer to that 3-to-1 ratio, the more money you will make. Let me show you some real examples. And this is like micro level factors that you need to consider as well when buying properties. You've got to be aware of the cost per square metre of stock in the area. Apartments are very easy to work out in terms of how much they cost. For example, Glen Iris is currently selling at 10,000 to 11,000 a square metre. So if you're buying a 50 square metre apartment times 10,000, it's 500,000. Okay, it's that simple. So you got to work out if you're buying an apartment area, what's the going rate per square metre? You got to work out the size of the property, number of bedrooms, and demand for that type of property in the area, which I'll talk about in a second. The size of the project and its suitability for the area and demographics, the layout and configuration, which I'm about to go through in detail, and the floor plan, and the level and quality of fixtures and fittings throughout the property, and more importantly, the builders and developers' experience and track record for providing and creating this product. You know, don't ever work with people doing the first project. When I buy apartments, and I've got apartments in my property portfolio, I look for the experience of the builder and developer and their ability to deliver the end result. Everyone can create pretty brochures, guys, but not everyone can build an end product that looks better than the brochure. And that's a key factor to consider when buying properties. So let's talk about 1-bedroom apartments. 1-bedroom apartment should be a minimum 50 square meters internal. Never buy a 1-bedroom apartment that has less than 50 square meters. Why? Because it's deemed to be a studio apartment and there's a lending restriction imposed on the property. You need to have the balcony as well. And by the way, the balcony doesn't account as an internal part of the internal size. It's purely the internal living area. Must have a car park. Never buy a 1-bedroom apartment without a car park. Must have a storage cage. That's sometimes optional, but I would prefer a storage cage as well. Located in a project of no more than 50 apartments. Never buy an apartment in a development where there's more than 50 apartments in the project. If there's more than 50, it's classified high density by valuers. There's a lending restriction imposed on the property. The master bedroom must be a minimum of 3.5 to 3 meters with a window. Okay, you can't have natural light coming from the ceiling or somewhere else. You need windows in the master bedroom. And I'll talk about that in a second with layouts. Separate kitchen and dining area. Ideally, a 1-bedroom should be 60 square meters to 70 square meters with built-in walk-through robes and an ensuite as well. Study nook is a huge advantage. People will pay a premium for a study nook. And the main bedroom must have windows with natural light. That's everything, guys. If the main bedroom doesn't have natural windows or you can't open up windows to have natural air, forget about the property, just don't buy it. You need to have a balcony of at least 10 square meters. You know, these 6-8 square meter balconies, I mean, it's just ridiculous. What are you going to do with 8 square meters of, what are you going to do with 1 meter by 8? You can't even, you know, you walk out there, we have 2 more friends and you can't even get past each other, you know. So let's talk about size. Let me show you something. This is an apartment that's 44.4 square meters. Not a good size because it's under 50 square meters. So automatically, I just wouldn't buy this property. But the thing that's really wrong with this property is 2 things. You can see the master bedroom, or the only bedroom is inside the property. There isn't any windows going into the bedroom, so you're never going to have natural light. It's going to be very dark. Despite the fact you can open up the sides, it's still going to be a dark one-bedroom apartment. And the other thing is you've got this dead space here. You've got this long corridor that represents dead space. The kitchen is fine. The balcony is not a bad size because it's actually 11 square meters. You know, even though it's got a car park and a storage cage and it's 55.8 square meters combined, this is not a good layout. I wouldn't buy this property. This is a good layout. This is actually smaller than the previous one, 43.5 square meters, but have a look at the configuration. You've got a master bedroom, but you've got this massive open plan courtyard. So you can open up the whole side of the property and you've got natural light and air coming into the master bedroom. Even this property is smaller than the previous one, there isn't any dead space in the property. You're walking straight into the kitchen dining area. So you've got virtually all the properties accessible and you've got a nice external area of 16.5 square meters, which totals 60 square meters. Now, a lot of people will say, well, it's 60 square meters. That sounds really good. No, it doesn't. It's not actually 60 square meters. From a lending perspective, it's 43.5 square meters. They don't take the courtyard into consideration, which means there's a lending restriction imposed on this property, 80% LVR, which means you don't buy it. It's that simple. I mean, you can buy it, but you won't get growth. Okay? You're not going to get optimum growth. This is a really good design. This is like the minimum that I look for in a one-bedroom apartment. Internal area is 50.7 square meters. So it's still small, but it's actually, it's pretty cool. The cool thing about this property is there is no dead space. You walk in and you have a laundry area, a proper laundry with a toilet as well. So you've got a toilet for your guests. They don't have to use your private toilet because you don't want your guests going through your bathroom. I don't know about you guys, but my bathroom in my ensuite is a disaster most of the time, okay? It gets cleaned once a week, right? But most of the week, it's like a war zone, okay? So when you have guests, you don't want them going through your private ensuite. You want to have a private, separate toilet area, which is really cool. You know, you've got the kitchen and it has a small island bench top, which is also a bonus, which gives you more bench space. A lot of one bedrooms that are 50 square meters don't have a little island bench top, okay? It's a kitchenette almost. Then you've got a separate dining and living area, which is pretty cool. Have a look at the bedroom. The bedroom's here. It's got sliding doors. It's got a massive courtyard, which is 21.1 square meters. It's got all this natural light and air coming in. And more importantly, it's got a private ensuite and a shower area. This is a really good configuration. For 50 square meters, this is one of the best one-bedroom configurations that I've seen, and this is what you need to look for if you want really good capital growth from one-bedroom apartments. Now, generally speaking, I don't even like one-bedroom apartments, okay? If I was buying an apartment, I'll be buying a two-bedroom apartment or three. But I'm saying if you need to buy a one-bedroom apartment for yourself to live in, or if that's the maximum you can afford in a particular area, and you've set your sight on that area, then this is the minimum kind of layout that you need to be aware of that works. So you've got 1.5 bathrooms, one bedroom. And obviously car space and storage. This is an awesome one-bedroom apartment. As you walk in, you've noticed there is no dead space. You've got a massive kitchen with an island bench top. So look at the space you've got in that kitchen. It's incredible. But the cool thing is you've got a study nook. You've got a separate, totally functional study. A lot of people like working from home. A lot of people want a separate study area that's not in the living room. And this is really good. Then you've got a master bedroom with large windows, and then you've got sliding doors to a balcony. So you've got plenty of light coming in, plenty of natural air. You've got a bathroom. Now you haven't got another small toilet, which is a bit of a negative, but you do have a large bathroom area. So you just got to keep that tidy when guests come in. And this is 61 square meters internal. You know, so it's a really good sized property. Balcony is a bit small, 7 square meters, not a very functional balcony, okay, so it's a bit of a negative. Total area, 68 square meters. Overall, it's still an excellent layout, you know, in terms of what it provides. Let's talk about two-bedroom apartments. Two-bedroom apartments should be a minimum of 65 square meters internal plus balcony. Two bedrooms or two bathrooms plus powder room. So 2.5 bathrooms is a must. You must have a car park. Ideally you have two, which is really rare these days, but one is an absolute, you have to have it, okay? And you have to have a storage cage. Once again, never buying anything with over 50 apartments. It's automatically classified as high density, lending restriction. The master bedroom must be 3.5 to 4 meters. Okay, so you need a large master bedroom with plenty of natural light coming in with windows. Separate kitchen and dining area. What you really want is 70 square meters to 95 square meters. That's what you're aiming for. Okay, 95 square meters is a really decent sized 2-bedroom apartment with built-in walk-through robes and en-suites. Study nook is a huge advantage. The master bedroom must have windows, lots of natural light, and you have to have a 15 square meter balcony. Okay, so let me just show you something. This is okay, but I'll show you something negative, and I'm seeing a lot of these kind of apartments being built recently. External, very good courtyard, 30 square meters, okay? The problem is this, it's a 2-bedroom with 1 bathroom. So you've got 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom. So that means you've got, not only do you have 2 people using 1 bathroom, but you've got your guests using the bathroom. But the worst thing about this property is look at the dead space. You've got these corridors that are completely non-functional that you're paying for, that you can't use the space at all. And the problem with these kind of bedrooms here is even though you've got a window here, you've got all these walls, you've got no natural light coming into this property at all, apart from this little window. Ideally, you want the whole side of the bedroom being able to be opened up into the terrace area. A good sized courtyard, no problem, but once again, the kitchen hasn't got an island as well. So it's a really dysfunctional floor plan. I wouldn't target this property, I would actually avoid it. This is a really good layout, okay? You've got 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, plus study. Now, the cool thing about this property is this. First of all, you enter it, you've got no dead space. The second thing is, you've got a bedroom here with an ensuite, okay? And then you've got access to a courtyard. The courtyard's massive. It's 54.5 square meters. But the good thing is you've got another bedroom here with another ensuite. That's a common bathroom for guests as well. But you can actually have these, because they're separated from each other, they're away from each other, you've got more privacy. And more importantly, you can lock these up and have 2 friends sharing this property because they've got plenty of privacy. Or you can have 2 separate people living here. So if you put locks on these doors, you can actually rent them out by the room if you want to. The cool thing is you've got a kitchen with an island bench top in the middle, so plenty of functional kitchen space. You've got a study nook as well, okay, big study area, and you've got plenty of light. I mean, look at the light that's coming into this property. See, the difference between good growth and average growth is when people come in to your property and they go, wow, look at the light in here. This feels really good. They don't even know why it feels good. They just know it feels good. And it feels good because of the aspect of the property, north facing and plenty of light. Where if they go into this property, they'll say, yeah, it's not bad. You know, it feels okay. There's a couple of things we don't like. And that's the difference between good floor plans and bad ones. This is one of the best 2 bedrooms that I've ever seen in real estate, in all my life in real estate. It's in Glen Iris. Have a look at this. The apartment is 93 square meters, okay? It's not perfect, by the way, okay? But it is very impressive. The first thing you notice is you go in to the property. You've got a bit of dead space there, a little bit. You've got a bathroom, common bathroom, but have a look at the master bedroom. You got walk-in robes and an ensuite and then sliding doors to this amazing terrace, which is 87 square meters, which is huge. I mean, you can have a party on that terrace. Second bedroom as well. Second bedroom is you got sliding doors onto this massive terrace area, and then look at the living area. I mean, it's phenomenal. Size of the kitchen, the living and dining area is phenomenal, and the light coming into this apartment is second to none. In fact, this is probably a 10 out of 10 in my books, even though it's only got 2 bathrooms. The thing that I would change in this property is put another ensuite onto the second bedroom and then diminish the size of the terrace. But I'm not the architect here, guys. I'm just an investor. The total area in this apartment is 180 square meters, you know, and this wasn't expensive. This was still around the $700,000 mark. So we're not talking about a penthouse here, just talking about a 2-bedroom apartment. 10 out of 10 for this one. You know, I would give this an 8, and I'll probably give this a 4, you know. And that's what you got to do with apartments, guys. If you're investing in something, you got to start looking at it objectively, and you got to be able to discern what's good and what's bad. And this stuff just takes experience, talking to agents and talking to property managers and just viewing hundreds and hundreds of apartments and walking through different floor plans, which I've done over the last 20 years. So I know what feels good, I know what works, what doesn't. That's pretty much it on apartments. One more thing I'd like to mention as well is be careful with lifts. If the lifts are located close to the master bedrooms, you're going to have a little noise at night, people going up and down in lifts. So stay away from apartments backing onto lifts. You want to be away from lifts, which is a big negative. As I mentioned before, here's the access to the special bonus, which is a real estate investing fast track weekend DVD or video online course worth $497. Yours absolutely free. Now I'm going to show you how to access this. Before I do, I want to personally invite you to spend 2 days with me and other experts in a special event that I'm running from time to time in Melbourne called the Real Estate Investing Fast Track Weekend. And these are the speakers at the event. Now, I hope you learned a few points from this video on how to choose between good apartments and bad apartments. If you have, imagine what you can learn over 2 days with experts that have been in the industry for decades. The first speaker that we have during the 2-day event is Martine Angelique from Savvy Accounting Solutions. She's a chartered accountant, property and wealth creation specialist, and she'll talk to you about psychology of wealthy people and also how to structure your property portfolio through trusts and corporate trustees, and why ownership of property versus control over property is such an important consideration. We've got Cameron Fisher from Changing Places Real Estate, who's a licensed estate agent, a qualified valuer, over 30 years experience in the industry. Cameron is also the director of buymyplace.com.au that's listed on the stock exchange, and he's done over 5,000 successful auctions in Melbourne over the last 30 years, plus he runs a massive property management division. So he'll talk to you about areas from a micro level perspective of what people want in certain areas and what to look for, what to avoid. The main speaker is myself. I'll be spending the whole 2 days with you, and I spent 6 hours on finance just on Saturday, which is huge, together with Stephen McClutchie from Loans Australia. Stephen McClutchie is one of the best mortgage brokers that I've had the privilege of working with over the last 10 years, 15 years I should say, and Stephen has settled over $1 billion worth of loans for investors. Have a think about that number for a second. That's 1,000 million in lending, which is huge. So we'll be talking about how to structure your property portfolio correctly. So this is an event that we're running here in our head office in the Gainsborough building located in Elmer Road, St Kilda. So all you got to do is click on this link or just scroll down below, click the link and check out the dates that we're running these events over. These events are very strictly limited to 40 people per event. So they're not big events, they're very small events. So day one is all about educating you on finance and property due diligence. Day two is really a cool day because we take you out of the classroom environment, we put you on the bus, and we take you around Melbourne, and together with Stephen Molnar, who's a property and wealth specialist, we do running commentary around different suburbs in Melbourne, what to look out for, what areas to avoid, and more importantly, which properties work in different areas. This event is amazing. It's one of my top favorite things that I do all year round. So if you are interested, just register your interest by going to that website. Also, if you'd like to have more information about finance, check out my book, Australian Property Finance Made Simple. Simply go to bookonfinance.com.au, or you can get a copy on amazon.com.au. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is how you access your special bonus home study online, 10 hours of video plus a manual of 265 pages. It's really cool though because it's really easy to access once you log in, and there's no payment for this, guys. It's completely free, no strings attached. You just click on the video, you watch it, you download the manual and just follow the content. It's that simple. I couldn't make it any more simpler and user friendly. So if you are interested in accessing that for free, no strings attached, all you got to do is go to that link or just scroll down below, click the link, and you can register yourself very quickly and get access to over 10 hours of unbiased education delivered by myself and other property experts in Australia. That's it from me. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for other videos that I'll be releasing in this series, and I encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Simply click down below and subscribe. This is Konrad Bobilak, and I'll see you on the inside.